Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I am your host, Paul O'Neid, and today I'm joined for a second time by someone who I have come to admire quite a bit in this coaching space, Jeremy Hartman. Jeremy, welcome to the podcast.
Awesome, Paul. Thanks for having me, man. Pleasure to be back on this, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. The first episode we did, we dove a lot into the coaching side of things, mostly on powerlifting and creating a hybrid model between online and in person. But you've been a very, very busy boy the last little bit, racking up trophies. Tell me a little bit about what's been going on, man.
Yeah, it's been great. This last year we've been really blessed. Besides creating athletes, which I've always done from the beginning, it's great to actually be having more people seek out who are at a pretty good level or at a very high level, and we're getting results at all. You're getting results from beginners, the intermediates, and now we got some advanced people that have been coming in. A lot of long-term athletes for a long period of time here, but high school nationals that was a big thing. Paul, I went out there. Had a kid. He's only been with me for a year and a half, and he came in as a pretty good kid, 400-pound squatter, legit for a high school kid. And he walked away with a 617-pound squat at high school
Holy
national.
fuck.
Yeah, and he was still 17 at the time.
That's
242 pounder.
that's
Yeah,
bananas.
yeah. We benched 400 raw, and then we pulled 585. We got a secure, second place finish. The other guy above him had a real good scholarship that he was taking, but had national run up there. And then my youth girl who's been dominant in the youth, which is 13 and under for our listeners out there. Now she's in the high school category. So I put her in varsity, and varsity is 9th through 12th grade. They have a JV that you can do, but there's over 1,000 kids at the high school national championship. She went out there, 132-pound body weight, again, 2-hour weigh-in, all raw lifting, squatted 314 pounds. So 14 years old, 132-pound body weight. She benched the all-time American and world record. She benched 176 pounds. And then came through, and we just deadlifted a solid 325. We had a little bit more left in it, but that's what we needed for a top 3 finish out there. So she's been with me since she's been with me since 10 years of age, man. It's almost 4 years now.
So there's two things I want to ask about that. The first one is when you framed your 17-year-old, you said he's only been with me for a year and a half.
Yeah.
In this day and age, when it comes to coaching, like churn rates are very high. How do you is there something that you do that you feel is different or special that allows you to retain these clients over a long period of time and have them buy into this long-term progression model?
Yeah, I think it's just the people around. I think we've gotten a lot of great people in here, and people want to be around those people. When you come in, I forget how good of a culture I have, because when I've had some outside people come in for the first time, they're like, man, everyone's focused. Everybody's, no one's messing around. They're not adjusting their volume or their music. Like, it's just one thing. Everyone's kind of going together. Everyone's helping each other out. And that was an early thing I learned from way back in 2001 at Westside Barbell, my very first visit. Creating the culture, having the people around. Two heads are always better than one on coaching. So you got 4, 5, 6 high level people coaching one person at a time when they're training. So I forget
Mm.
that sometimes, because it's just something, you and I are around every single day. It's just part of what we do. So I think that's the big thing, is it's the focus, it's the people around. It's other of my athletes giving them advice. You got a Jared Martin squatting 1,000, mentoring some of these high school kids as well too. So now it's just like your end, my business is now we're getting a little more of the athletes who are also coaching at the same time, who are also helping each other. So it's not all seen as just me. So if you had to ask me, I think it's really that part. I think the second thing is I'm not afraid to grow. You and I, know Ed Cohen very well. I call Ed frequently, ask him about stuff with some of my athletes when they're peaking, or if I'm running into trouble spots, or if I got questions, or if I just kind of know the answer, but I want to bounce the idea off
Yeah.
him. So I really think that I'm still reaching out. I'm still running stuff by through some very high level people. And I think it goes go back to that culture I've tried to create, and the people around me that have always been here. So people want to be a part of that. They want to be around winners, champions, people who succeed at all levels.
That's one thing that I talk to coaches a lot about is your coaching has to be more than just coaching. It has to be more than just, hey, I'm working with you one-on-one. That client has to feel like they're part of something bigger. And they have to have this, it's a feeling of belonging, but it's also a feeling of a feeling of safety is what I would say, right? That client who comes in and maybe has never been exposed to an environment like yours. Yes, that environment demands a lot of that person, but it also gives them way more than it asks. So, you're essentially creating, so you are the thermostat, you set the temperature. Then you have those high level athletes underneath you who have been in the environment, been in the culture, walk the walk, kind of mentoring those younger people underneath, eventually those younger people underneath will become those high level people and mentor the new. So you create this ecosystem of excellence across the board, top to bottom. I think that's really special. The question is, how do you transition that from the in-person space and create that same environment in the online space?
Yeah. So with the online space, with that part, the same thing. We have private pages just for our online people only, and I just encourage it when someone sets a PR. I highlight it on there, through video, through an announcement. When someone does a great job or somebody came back, from this or that, or they had struggles, they had adversity to go through. I think I just always highlight that, and I encourage people. I tag everybody in it. They all cheer them on. When someone has a great lifting meet, or I've had several of my athletes on there. We had a guy I was at the Olympic trials last year with for wrestling. Just stuff that where everybody was always cheering people on and leaving comments and saying great luck, or hey, you'll get through this, or hey, don't worry about it, hey, your bench went up this week, I know you're struggling on your deadlift. They'll even leave some technical comments, hey, I think if you do this, or hey, this worked for me, or
I
Coach
love
Hartman
that.
said this. So it's one thing I've tried to even push over there on that stuff too. And you, as well as I know, as a head coach, it's something like people don't see all that, and it's
Yeah.
something I just try to push. So that's the way we do it with the online. Is I try to get everybody involved. I make announcements. I make personal videos about stuff. I get other people to chime in. Other people are encouraged to leave comments. We highlight stuff all the time, and we talk about some, like, you and I have our own stories. I highlight some of the backstories. So hey, they were struggling with this, or hey, you look where they've come through the adversity on this part.
What X's and O's question? What platform do you use for that?
I'm just using my own personal platform. I've tried several different ones, and I just simplified my own training into mine. So I just really have spreadsheets. I have private Facebook pages, private Instagram pages with stuff, just some
Okay, so
simple
like
stuff.
your clients are all in like a private Facebook group.
Yeah, yep. So we have an online private
Okay.
Facebook group only. So I made it more like I just talked about, like a community. It's more than
Yeah.
just like, hey, you're an online, just post your videos. No, this is you're joining a community. When somebody new joins in, we have announcements for all them talking about their background. People connect, like, oh, hey, I was a fireman too, or hey, I was a this or that, or hey, I was a lawyer as well. So that's a platform I just kind of simplified and use.
When people either like graduate out of your coaching or maybe move or leave, do you keep them in that community? Is that exclusive to people who are only working with you?
Yeah, I've kept some people in there who have been really good athletes, really ones who have stayed with me, or they need little things like that. I think it's when you're part of the family, you're part of the family.
Yeah.
If some people, I've had a few people that when they left, or if they were switching some other stuff, I switched them out of there. But
Mhm.
overall, I try to keep like a good community. I've had people in there, they come back like they want to use me for lifting meets, or I have some people, since I specialize in single ply powerlifting gear along with raw lifting.
Mhm.
I'll keep them in there. They're like, hey, coach, I want to do a raw meet. They'll train for this, but hey, I want to come back and do this equip thing coming up over here. So it's kind of a little bit of a hybrid on there.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. I think the community piece is something that you can leverage. I call it watering your garden. So when you talk about marketing, you're always planting seeds. And once you've planted a seed and that seed has grown into a flower, right? A paying client would be a flower. The season ends and that flower may die, but that seed still lives. And I think if you continue to still fertilize that seed and make sure that it has the food that it needs, it will grow back into a flower in the future, because it's always easier to sell coaching or work with somebody who you've already worked with, is already bought into the system, than it is to try and like assimilate a new client or sell to a new client. Um, so I love that you're, doing that as part of the business, because I do think it also builds culture, because people will, if they're still involved in the community, maybe they're not working with you actively, they're still going to be talking about you, right? They're still going to be talking about, hey, dude, Hartman's doing all of this shit with his people. Like, if you need help, you need to go to him. So they become advocates for you outside of, just the coaching piece.
Yeah, and that's been one thing even you and I discussed. You gave me some advice on, and I've gotten more from referrals, just like you have, than anything else. Because, like you said, it's easier for someone else to sell. I get people that they're already sold before they come in. They don't even ask a price. They just said, hey, so and so recommend. They told me all about this and how you helped them through the prep, and now you're here at the meet, and I got to see you coach with them. Like, yeah, what do we have to do to get started? I'm like, don't you want to know the price, or don't you want to
Yeah,
know
I don't care.
like yeah, just yeah, tell me. I mean, yeah, tell me what you do. Okay, everything sounds good. Like they're already sold before they came in.
Um, the other piece that I wanted to chat about, when we're talking about youth athletes or teenage athletes, I'm sure you see a lot of things at these meets that don't align with you and your values. I'm wondering what are some things as coaches working with those younger athletes? What are some things that we can look to optimize and address to make sure that these athletes continue to grow in the sport and don't burn out or don't succumb to injuries?
Yeah, whether you're talking about sport athletes, Paul, or we're talking about powerlifting, because I have a little bit of both in here. They've had some real good success on. I think it's just the powerlifting side. It's just when you go to meets, you're picking attempts that they're going to hit. You're keeping the carrot in front of them, so that way they're always like, "Hey, I got this PR. Man, that felt really easy. I want to get this." And with the young kids, I want them to go 9 for 9. Maybe they miss a technical part, go 8 for 9. At the very least, a 7 for 9 day. But I'm always looking for a 9 for 9 day with them. Small PRs along the way. Even if they could have deadlifted, I had a kid. He was at youth nationals. We set the American record in bench presses last year. Another different one. Even though he could have benched a little bit more, we still set the American record. He came through. He could have deadlifted 226 pounds, and the kid's only 10 years old. But I gave him 220. It was a lifetime PR for him. It was something that he really wanted to hit. And I talked to his dad. I'm like, he could do this, but we're hitting this number. We got done. He was so happy to hit the 100 kilos. That was a big part of his. So I think just doing all that, having little increments along the way, a rep PR, Paul. Even if you didn't get your heavy set, giving them like a couple down sets because they can handle so much volume. I
Yeah.
think it's just always a little bit of progress. Hey, you did this better. Or on the other side, even if hey, we're going to bench, whether it was 135 pounds again, we're going to bench that again, but I want to see with better technique and better speed next week. So again, like they didn't get a PR, but they hit it with a little bit better speed, a little bit better technique. They see, okay, I still have a little bit of progress I'm making. So good days at the meets.
Mhm.
9 for 9 is obviously the goal. Small PRs on everything, even if they could have done a little more. And I think in training, it's just rep PRs. 1 rep max, little PRs here. Hey, hitting some heavy singles. Hey, a little bit lower on your squat depth. Hey, a little bit better technique, and that keeps the kids engaged.
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece at that young age because I think as we get older, I know I fell into this trap. You think that every meet has to be the meet. And one of the things that I preach with the lifters that I work with is this is not your last meet. Powerlifting is not going anywhere. You're going to keep progressing. As long as we chip away at these benchmarks and you just keep chipping away, the progress is almost infinite. Like Ed talks about this all the time. It's like I just never missed in training and I always made smart jumps. And the word that jumps out to me while you were talking was a lesson that chilled like young people, whether athletes or non-athletes, they need to learn humility. They need to learn how to just check themselves, take what's there, and understand that they can live to lift another day. And it's okay to not like juice it for everything that it has on that one day because there's still going to be more meets down the line. Yeah, I love that.
And
So
with that
go ahead.
big squatter we had, that high school kid I was telling you about, squatted 617 for
Mhm.
me. He
Yep.
came to one of our seminars, Ed and I did, and Ed told him the same thing because I had Ed go over and coach him. I'm like, you get coached by me every week. And Ed told him the same thing. He goes, you just need years under the bar. He goes, today I want you to hit 500 for 5 sets of 5. And I want to see that's 25 reps you're going to hit with, sub-maximal weights there. And
Mhm.
he goes, I'm going to be able to coach and see all this stuff. And he goes, I'm going to help you out. He goes, you need to do this a little bit better. You need to sit back a little bit more better. You need to keep your chest up a little higher, sternum up a little more. So he got coached through multiple sets and reps. Ned was saying you don't need to always come in and go max out. He goes, even though I know you can, and even though at your level you're going to make progress, he goes, you're going to stall out, you're going to get injured, or C, all the above. All that's going to happen at once. So he goes, take your time, get the 5 sets of 5, get the multiple sets, the multiple reps, get a lot of practice, and it's going to take years, but you're on your way to good success.
That's a huge trap, right? Because it's like at that age, I mean, at that age, you could have the guy jerk off in a corner and he'd PR his squat. So it's like I could go in and max out all the time and I would make progress, but is that progress going to be sustainable over the long term? Am I learning the lessons I need to learn? Am I optimizing my technique? Am I raising? I have this concept that I've kind of been working on where you have like the floor and the ceiling. And I think a lot of the time in our training, we get caught chasing raising the ceiling as opposed to just raising the floor. Because if we raise the floor and decrease the distance between the floor and the ceiling, that ceiling has no choice but to come up. It's a lot safer, number one. It's not as sexy, doesn't look as good on Instagram, but it's going to keep you healthier and it's more sustainable over the long term.
Yep.
So your worst days over time end up being better than your previous best days. And it's not fancy.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what you look at a lot of my lifters. They get sometimes caught up on Instagram. Oh, these other guys I'm going up against are setting all these PRs. I'm like, we PR a little bit here and there, especially last several weeks before meet. But it's really at the meet when my lifters go 9 for 9, 8 for 9. A bad day is 7 for 9 for us. And usually it's we. I really haven't had a meet where my lifters have missed on strength. It's more been a small technical error or a
Yeah,
mental error that they've gone on, and that's
especially
been a big thing.
younger lifters for sure.
Yeah, but like you said, we keep that floor, that ceiling, and we keep raising it a little bit. We keep that foundation going, and then when it's time to peak, we peak. And we usually have had great meets, especially this last couple of years here.
Talk to me about some of the victories you've had with these big lifters. Like, man, like Shane squatting over 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, yeah.
That's banana. Like we're and drug free. Like this is drug free. 1,000 pounds. That's insane.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to jump on now. So Jared he literally just got back from China yesterday. So the World Games for your listeners, it's the highest you can get in powerlifting. You have to go to your U.S., your country's nationals, win that. Go to the International Powerlifting Federation Worlds. You have to be top three there, and then once every 4 years, that's when the World Games are, and that's where you actually feel like an athlete out there. They had their own kind of village for their lifters. I mean, for all the sports that were out there, you got through
Cool.
yeah, you got through customs on your own. They took you through there. They had sponsorships, which means they had college kids who were trained to come and be there, basically their interpreters, whatever they needed. The big guys need to eat, get them going. They got breakfast, lunch, and dinner served to them every day. They had an awards ceremony at the beginning. Powerlifting had its own arena, just like you see Olympic weightlifting at the Olympics.
Holy
I mean,
shit.
I'm going to post some videos and stuff up, but yeah. So here's an interesting thing. So I had Jared Martin.
Yeah.
Jared actually. He had an interesting story, Paul. His wife actually passed away 2 months ago.
What?
Yeah, yeah. I was at his funeral.
Oh my. Oh my god.
Yeah, so we were kind of getting ready to prep this, and we've been talking about this for a long time. And so Jared and I had to talk about all this stuff, what had happened. So he actually moved in with me for the last month of his training. So he came down here. He lived with me. I mean, he works from home in logistics. So he came down here, and this was the first time for one of my athletes I got to control everything. We blocked out all the other stuff. This is what he wanted to do. Him and his wife have been talking about this for the last couple of years about making this World Games and getting going on. And so he moved down here. So he literally had nothing else but his nutrition every single day. I got to control all that. There was no sweets in the house. There was no junk. My heavyweight lifters, they like to eat,
Oh
but
yeah.
everything was controlled by me. We lifted a little bit later at night because that was the time he was going to lift in China. Every single day he lifted, I had at least 5 or 6 people around him, my HPT people. So whether it was late at night, I made him travel to different gyms. I said, hey, you're going to be under stress. Like we're traveling 45 minutes at 9 o'clock at night here. Hey, we're traveling, an hour and a half on Saturday. Hey, we're getting up a little bit earlier for this part. We're doing this. So I kept his stress, but I wanted to keep him always on there. I wanted to switch. Like, hey, you're going to have to deal with it. This is the equipment they have over here.
Hmm.
And Jared went out there we were 3 days ago, Paul, 4 days ago, and drug free. He weighed in at 297 pounds. He squatted over 1,000 pounds twice in the same meet. He squatted 1,003 on his second attempt, and then then we went and squatted 1,025 on his third, which was big PRs for him. And then he went and benched 683. And then on top of that, Paul, I had to be very careful with his training. Here's for our viewers. So 2.5 weeks out, we squat 1,014. And that same week, we had a bench press near his max around 670. I think we went up to about 672. And then the same week, we pulled, and I had planned 824 on his lifts, but just the way he was looking and how he was from squatting 1,000, benching 672, and being a drug-free athlete, like we pulled a
Hmm.
solid 804. I was like one of those, like I really wanted around 824 for the day. I kind of wanted to push him on that, but you could just tell he was a little off. His back was a little iffy from squatting that week. So we just said, hey, let's get a solid one over 800. He pulled it real well. No downsets were needed. But what I did was I pushed his assistance work up during that time.
Hmm.
You know, um, those were his main things. I was about 2.5 to 2 weeks out before his meet with everything. But he came through and it was the best he ever did. Actually, after that, Paul, that was about 2.5 weeks out, 2 weeks out. And then I started tapering him down. But like I just said, he just went from 1,014. Now I had, we did kind of like a little over in the low 900 squat the next week, but I
Hmm.
pushed his assistance work up because the body is like this. Well, hey, I don't have to grow. I don't have to be massive now. You're not putting 1,000 on my back. So then I had to increase his assistance work. So I pushed those up a little harder. The next week before, we just worked them up to around still upper 800. We worked up to about an 870 a week out. Um, But from there, it was still a good 870. But again, I pushed his assistance work up to keep the hypertrophy up, to keep that stimulus in your nervous system. Like, hey, you have to keep this muscle mass on. So even
Yeah.
though we're not putting over 1,000 on your back here, I'm pushing you on this. You still need to adapt. That's the way I was able to peak him out. And then I brought his deadlift down a little bit. We only pulled in the low sevens about a week out because you could tell he was getting a little bit beat up.
Hmm.
I kept his bench shirt training on a week out, which I usually don't do, but he was looking really good with it. And that's part of the coaching because I got to control everything for the first time.
Right.
Paul, he went out there on a stiff bar again after squatting 1,003, 1,025, 683 bench. He pulled an 848 deadlift.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and pulled it pretty darn good. Like we had another 10 kilos, which was even better than what I had planned out. And Paul, he got done. And as you know, dealing with heavyweight lifters, their GPP, their general physical preparation, isn't always the best. Sometimes they're not able to finish a meet. They usually
Hmm.
miss that third attempt deadlift because they're big boys, are a little out of shape.
Yeah. Or they meant like their grip sucks because their CNS is trashed. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. I see that was the thing about coaching him and having him down here for a month in my house. I got to control everything. We had nightly walks with him. I had supersetting some of his assistance work. I had all his lifts timed. He only had a certain amount of time we put on his phone because you and I know lifters
Yeah.
get into talking and all of a sudden 6, 7 minutes goes by. I'm like, hey, you gotta hit your next one. Nope. We put everything on a timer for him. So he had to lift no matter how he was feeling. And I worked with that a little bit. I gave him a minute or two in
Of
between,
course.
but I timed everything out. So he only had a limited number of time because at Worlds, he was having about 8 or 9 minutes between squats. I mean, he squatted 1,003. And I think if you look at the timer, he had less than 10 minutes to squat the 1,025 before he was up again. So it was all those little things that you add up as all the ingredients that you needed to really, really come through and bake that cake at the very end when you needed it. And he pulled the 848. And what they did out there, Paul, is they didn't have weight classes. So they took the 231s, the 264s, and Jared was super heavyweight. They took
Right.
all those world medalists and they did it by GL points, which is like a dots formula.
Hmm.
Jared with that he was in fourth place the whole time, man. You know, you're going body weight versus weight lifted. Fourth place the whole time. His second attempt deadlift, 820. I think we pulled in the low eights. That brought him up to the third place, and his final one took him all the way to the silver medal. So again, like you talked about, had we not GPP'd him, kept that
Hmm.
base like you just talked about with the floor set up the whole time, had I not had him going for nightly walks, super setting stuff up, I brought him in a little undertrained. Usually I kind of push that limit. I actually brought him down because he had to travel to China, 12-hour
Hmm.
time difference, two
A lot of
flights over there.
stress.
Yes,
Yeah.
see, that's what people don't put into account because they simply don't know. So I brought him a little more undertrained at the very end, and he said it was the best that we've ever done out there and ended up being a silver medalist all around.
There's so much to take away here. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't ask, how did he manage his emotions during that process? Listen, my wife's my best friend, man.
Yep.
If I lost my wife, like I've joked with her that if she ever left me or whatever, like that I would just retire from life. I don't know if I'd be able to do that. I don't know if I'd be able to continue on pursuing the things that I'm pursuing without my wife. Like how did he manage that?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. Like we sat down. One of my Shelby Miles, who also won the U.S. Open for me this last year in USAPL. Her mom was a therapist, so I sat down and talked with her about the way he was dealing with stuff, and she really didn't have any. And the way he was processing stuff and dealing with it was perfectly fine. He wasn't going to have a blowout or a simple meltdown with everything. She explained to me just the process that different people go through, just like how different lifters respond to different training out here. Some high volume, some high intensity, some a mixture of both. Him and I were together the whole time, so nightly walks and stuff. Those were non-negotiable to keep him in shape, even though it was 11:30 at night. It didn't matter when we got back in the gym. So we would just talk about certain things. I would let him bring up certain things at certain times. And if he didn't
Hmm.
want to talk about stuff, he didn't. There were a couple times I'd bring up some stuff. When there was other stuff that happened, I took it away. We compartmentalized stuff. When he had to deal with certain things, he had to deal with certain things. When it was time to do this, it was time to do this. When he needed time to talk with me, we had a little bit more time on the weekend, then we would talk a little bit more about stuff. If he needed some guidance on a few things, I had him talk to some of my other lifters. And when you have every single session, I had 5 or 6 lifters around him that were pretty good lifters. Having those people around to talk, having those people around to cheer him on, like, hey, you got this. Help out with his knee wraps, help out with his suit stuff, get him ready. Be there, even though he's got another hour left of training. They would stay through all his assistance work at the very end. So I think
Mm.
again, it goes back to what you and I first talked about at the beginning of this was creating the environment, keeping those people around. Everything was always positive. Everything was good.
Right.
I kept his eating good. There was no more junk food. There was no more like high energy drinks and stuff. All that stuff was out, not that I had at my house, but all that stuff was away from him, so we could control those things. And then the big thing on my end, Paul, was I eliminated all these little distractions that he would normally have.
Hmm.
If he had to do certain things, I would take care of it. If there were certain things, my lifters and other people would take care of it. So we worked like that, and it was just a daily thing. It's I was trying to be there for whatever he needed, whenever he needed it at that time. If he needed a therapist, him and I were going to go talk. We're going to go for a walk with everything. I needed good people around him every single day, so I always made sure we had great people around him. I talked with Shelby's mom therapist. She gave me certain points on what we needed to do with all our stuff. So he had that and work, and I took care of his nutrition 100%. That was 100% on me. So I think it was just I was able to do all that stuff. He was able to process it in his own way, and we kept going forward.
That is perhaps one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard when it comes to lifting, man. Like that's really special. I'm sure for as a coach, like for you to see him do what he did under those circumstances. When we talk about coaching wins, it's cool that he came in second place. Like that's very cool. But I'm sure the win for you was much greater than that.
Yeah, I mean, this is something we'd always talk about world games, and he's getting a little bit older. He's 36, and he's a heavyweight. He's been with me for 12 plus years now. And the fact that I've been able to keep him healthy like this, raw and equipped, he's got world records in squat and both. We're not just, one than the
Hmm.
other. I think it was very special for both of us because we brought him along slowly. You look him up, Jared Martin on open powerlifting, look at his increments. They've always been slow and steady. There's no huge, big versions. He's stuck in 700-pound squats for years. Now he's creeped back up and stuff again. So, yeah, it was a big win. It was good because I finally got to do what I wanted to do. We had that talk about, hey, you can stay up here with your family and you can train over here, but you really need to be around me. And I had a couple other people reach out and tell him, hey, I really think you should do that. And he goes, you know what? I need to pack up. I need to move down there with you. I need to focus on this, not have any other distractions during this time. And Paul, if you look at all the great fighters, boxers,
Hmm.
UFC guys, what they always talk about, a training camp. My wrestlers, a
Yeah.
training camp where it's all focused. Marvelous Marvin Hagler, one of the greatest boxers of all time, he talked about his training camp was jail. It was the same routine every single day, no other outside distractions. Wake up, breakfast, training. So that's why I told Jared we needed to do for this. And lo and behold, this was the greatest thing he ever had, and he knew it in the end, man. Him and I we were on the phone. We are pretty heartbroken. Two upperweight, big
Of
guys and
course.
stuff. Like after the meet, we were pretty a lot of emotions and stuff after that because
Yeah. I can
9 for 9
imagine.
day PRs across the board in a different country. 12
Yeah.
hour time difference, not compete at your local event. So it was great, man.
How was the experience for you being like was that your first time ever attending World Games? I assume no.
No, he had to go out there on his own. Unfortunately, U.S. athletes have to pay their own way,
No,
and
for you as the coach.
yeah, for me as a coach, yeah, first time I had an athlete out there. I competed back in 2009 in Taiwan when I got to go,
Right.
but that
Mhm.
was the first one at this high level where I had an athlete who I got to develop. Jared wasn't from the ground up. He was a pretty good lifter when he came in.
Yeah, but
600
that's
pounds.
12 years, bro. That's a
Yeah,
long
I know.
fucking time.
Yeah, but he's a hybrid athlete where he's down here a little bit, and him and I have a unique relationship where I tell him what to do, I tell him what not to do. He'll come up with some stuff on his own, so it's a little bit different than a traditional online athlete. But
Mm.
this is what works for Jared and I. We've been around each other for so long that we kind of know each other and know what's kind of expected, and we just need to explain some stuff, or I need to tell him why, and he'll put it into play on there.
How how do you move forward from this? Cuz so draw some parallels. In a lot of instances with our clients, they have the big win and then there's that post meet blues or this drop off in motivation or this big emotional dump. When you're dealing with an athlete, whether it be Jared or whether it be another athlete, how do you deal with that post meet? I don't want to use the word depression, but that's how it's often categorized, right? It's like
Yeah,
post meet, you've had this massive high, this massive adrenaline dump, and then it's back to Groundhog Day, and you don't necessarily have that next mountain to climb yet.
yeah.
How do you go about having that discussion with athletes?
Yeah, I pushed him very hard. This was a tough year on his body overall. Like I said, that's why I brought him a little undertrained more than overtrained into, the world games here. So we already had that discussion. Actually, we had it yesterday because he literally just got back from China with the whole time zone and sleeping a little bit. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually making him take this whole week off, which I normally don't do. They're usually in there a couple times a week. He's going
Yeah,
to go
me
in there and
too.
stretch out, but he's not allowed to train. We're going to start with some bodybuilding stuff, give him some different movements. I'm going to give him some high bar squats on there. some different stuff, some sumo deadlifts, some stuff that he hasn't been. So it's like some different challenges because I always need to keep that carrot in front of Jared. And we talked about our next goal. Our next goal is to squat over 900 pounds, raw, drug free, walked out. Because we have a couple things we want to check off the list. It's over the 900-pound squat raw. It's over 1,100-pound squat with gear and stuff on. Because I'm still teaching him how to use gear. This was the first meet where he's really put the single ply gear together. For our viewers and our listeners out there, that's a whole different level of powerlifting. You don't just get to put a bench shirt on or a squat suit or knee wraps,
Yeah.
and you're going to lift more. You'll actually lift less the first couple times on it.
I remember my first time in single ply.
Yeah.
I was like, this is stupid.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it's been a blessing with him because him being such a big guy, it's actually given his hips a little bit of a break. It's given his back a little break.
True.
It's given him a new challenge. So yeah, because he was like, "This is dumb. Like I can squat more raw. What do you?" But he goes in the end. He goes, actually, again, it prolonged his career now because he
Mm-hmm.
even said, he goes, man, he goes, lifting raw. He goes, I might have been done a couple years ago. He goes, how we, just how we were pushing everything the way he was. But he goes, this has given my body a new challenge, a new break, a new supportive system. And believe it or not, all my raw lifters, Paul, all their lifts increase when we start because you're hitting on overload over and over and over again.
Exactly. Yep.
Guess what? Talk about this. I gave him an example on this. They're like, oh, what do you do for Jared's triceps? Like, oh, his bench has gone up. I go, listen, when you're handling 600 plus pounds to boards, with a bench shirt over and over again, that will trump any tricep extension, any rollback, anything in the world. You can
Yeah.
do that. Those are, as Ed Cohen talks about, those are the Christmas lights on a tree. You really need to build the branches up, and that's through the overloaded work. That's through the board presses. That's through the close grip benches. So when you've
Mm-hmm.
done that, his lifts have gone good. And you're putting over 1,000 pounds on your back, even if you're going raw, a little over 800, that feels like nothing now.
Yeah, that was one of the things I noticed about like training in wraps versus training raw. The wrap training, it would build up my adductors, it would build up my core strength and hip stability more than anything. Just because you're handling like I would joke when I squatted 800 for the first time, my best sleeve squat was 585. And it wasn't because I couldn't squat more. It was because I never really trained my raw squat heavy. But
Yes.
then when I took the wraps off and I started pushing my raw squat, I went from 585 to 727 like really quickly.
Yep. And that happens to all even my guys that compete in single ply gear only, all their
Mm-hmm.
raw lifts go up. They're like, hey, not accidentally. Hey, my one guy hit a little over 500-pound bench. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he goes, hey, he goes, what the heck? We were stuck at like 475, 480. And he goes, we're training for equipped. And he's got his raw day and he hit 500 pretty good, like kind of like an RPE 9, like he had a little bit left in him. And he was just like, man, he goes, this is, my raw lifts are up. My equipped lifts are up. We're good.
What's been one of the biggest learning experiences that you've had this year dealing with so many high level competitors achieving success?
I think the biggest learning experience is with all the guys I've had. I'll give you an example. We got a lot of Division One wrestlers in here, which has been phenomenal. I love having high level athletes. So even with them in here and with the other guys, um, God, it's just it's managing them because each one challenge is different. Each one can turn it on differently. Each guy that comes in here, they're some are a little bit quiet, some are hyped up like me a little bit. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's that managing that people don't see. It's like you're dealing with these guys, but yeah, I'm like you still have to manage. You still have to fight every day to keep that culture. I have to keep this like as Louis Simmons said, like a family. That's why Louis always had breakfast going on for his guys.
Yeah.
Families don't eat enough together. So I think it was the one thing of keeping this all together and people talking. I had Jared Martin, he was down there at the gym we trained at. He was talking with Mary Lappin. Mary was fifth in the Olympics for Olympic weightlifting list last year for the United States. Holds the all-time clean and jerk record. So it's like having those people around. We go down there and train when she was around, and those two would talk about training internationally, traveling, their experiences, how to help them out. So I really think it's just keeping that culture going, dealing with each individual. When they have setbacks or these guys are happening on this end, or we had some really good track and field athletes in here this last year. So it's just managing with those. Some people, they respond to this. Some people, they don't respond to this. Some people respond to challenges. Some people, I have to put them in a motivational challenge situation to get them that little bit extra. So it's interesting how all of them work. And I love it, man. I love seeing, okay, this worked on this kid, or hey, this really got this kid motivated. Or hey, so-and-so did this today. You better get this today. He did what? I'm going to beat that. So I think it's finding different ways to challenge them to get that little bit extra motivation. And that keeps my culture here.
When you're investing so much into a single athlete, how do you manage everyone else that's coming through your doors?
Um, I guess I include them. When I was managing Jared, and he was a big sole purpose, but I still had my business. I still had athletes of all different sports, powerlifters of
Yeah.
all different eras coming in here. Um, they still got put as priority with everything, or they kind of knew like, hey, Jared's hitting some big lifts this week, so when you guys come in, I'm gonna be helping him a lot. The focus is on him, but make sure I see all your big lifts, or hey, I'll wrap you for these lifts, or hey, so and so is going to help you today on this part, taking care of all the little stuff, so that way I can kind of manage and coach everybody a little bit. Because one time we had down here, I had my guys were getting ready for USAPL single ply nationals along with Jared at the same time. So it's just I let my team know like, hey, we're all in this together. Like, hey, you're going to be rapping today. Hey, you're going to be helping out with this today. Hey, I'm going to be overseeing all this today. And they knew I'm like, hey, Jared's, they knew the situation Jared was going through. So I just told him like, hey, he's going to get a little more of my attention today, but I'm going to see all your big lifts. I'm going to help you out with this stuff. Or what I do, Paul, is I'd bring those guys in a little bit later, or I'd bring my less experienced guys in a little bit earlier, so that way I could focus on them a little bit, and they could still see some of the big lifts from other people. So again, it's managing that day to day. I'm there for what they need when they need.
It's interesting that you say that, because initially my thought process was, well, if he's investing so much into Jared, there has to be a trade-off of not necessarily having the ability to invest in the other folks. But the reality is by involving them in Jared's process, you're giving them a window into what that level of excellence looks like. And you're using that as the motivation and as the engagement to keep them with their eyes on the future. Because I think, especially if they are bought into your system of excellence, they're bought into the community, they see themselves as Jared in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. So it's almost acting like a window into the future for these folks.
Yeah, and Jared gave good examples and good stuff in between. Like we talked about my high school kid, Cash. Like Ed told him, hey, I'd rather see you hit 500 5x5. It's like you see how Jared didn't miss reps, see how Jared didn't miss weight, see how he still got good form, see how we pushed him, but I still held back a little bit. Do you see how he's peaking for meat? And Jared would talk with some of my lifters in between that stuff too. And again, you get all these people talking and you seeing it. Or I bring some of my new lifters. I had some really good wrestlers here. They're going to be wrestling at Indiana University. I got two guys going D1. They're going to be
Cool.
seniors this year. Yeah, they've already signed scholarships. But even those guys, I'm like, do you see what it means to tighten up on your squat? Do you see what it means, to get in a better back position and your sternum up when you go to deadlift on there? So I could point little stuff out in between while Jared was lifting. I'm like, hey, come over and watch this. So even though they're not power lifters, I still want them the technical best when they go
Of
through,
course.
so they could see all that stuff. I got a kid right now, he's wrestling Division I at Kent State University in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And, when he was out there, Paul, his second day, they had to lift with freshman fundamentals for their sport out there. The second day, the coach is like, just go lift with the upperclassmen. He goes, you're done with it. Like, this is just silly. So it was just stuff like that. He goes, where the hell did you train? Who have you been around? And I emailed the coach and stuff and ahead of time, but the coach doesn't know. He's a college strength coach.
Of course, yeah.
And he goes, well, yeah, I've been around this, and this guy squatted this. And he's like pulling up pictures of all my lifters. And, well, yeah, I learned this from this guy. And he goes, you're fine. Just go with the upperclassmen. You don't need to be down here at all.
I love that.
Yep.
Let's switch gears a little bit, because I
Yep.
know that you work with a lot of coaches as well. One of the things that I know is very important to you is education, mentorship. What are some of the things that you do with the coaches that you work with to help level them up as you're working with your athletes?
Yeah, any coaches that I work with in here or I speak with, I show them the examples, and they don't. I need to slow them. It's almost like a new athlete, Paul. I need to slow them down, teach them the right way on stuff, because a lot of them they want programs. They want they want this, or they want what was the structure, what was his RP. I'm like just
Yeah, they want the X's and O's all the time.
no. When we talk to Jared, like he can tell you the significant difference between an 800 to a 900 pound squat, all the little technical changes we made. He can tell you the difference now between a 900 and a 1,000 pound. Yes, we've had to do load management. Yes, we use RPE stuff. Yes, I'm there direct coaching with everything. But it's more the technical side that they can fix, because with these athletes, I don't care if you're a lifter or an athlete or whatever, when you fix their technique, if you're doing an old school 5x5 routine, one of the oldest routines that's around there from Bill Starr, if you're doing that routine for a long period of time and you're making technical advances, their lifts are going to get better just on that. So it's slowing those coaches down, teaching them the right way and helping out. The last seminar I did, we had a lot of coaches in, and I brought my whole team in, Paul. We ran in 12 deep. All right, Jared was obviously in here. I had the Indiana University throws coach. She's one of my athletes, Megan Tomei. She's a big person at Swiss too. She's a 500-pound deadlifter for me at 181. So I brought in like all these lifters. So when I had coaches up there, like we were all coaching, and I was showing them different parts. A lot of my stuff is all hands-on too. So I tell them, come into the gym, learn this stuff. Like I'll teach you this stuff. So I think it's just really communicating with them, showing them the big differences that I see, asking them, hey, what did you see on that person's squat? Well, based on what you're saying earlier, they weren't drifting their hips back enough. Their knees were tracking too far over. They were coming down around position. They weren't keeping their sternum up. I said, yes, now here's how we fix it. And I give them a tool. I'll give them a long pause squat on there. I'll give them a very slow tempo. I know a tempo squat is 3 to 5 seconds down.
Hmm.
I've used up to 10-second tempos to teach them every single part of the squat on the way down so they could fix it. Now it's in
Hmm.
extreme cases, but I showed them this is how you fix it. Or I might give them an exercise. I'm like, see how your kid's using their shoulders too much here over and over again? Teach them the technique number one. Their triceps are very weak. They're relying on their shoulders, which is the number one injured area, that and pecs and all the benches. So teach them to set up correctly, number one. I said, I'd show them number two. I said, your kid can't even do rows. You've got to get the back stronger. You've got to get the triceps stronger, so not relying on this stuff. So I show them the lift. I teach them the technique a little bit, and then I start asking them questions so they can kind of figure it out. And then I start giving them some tools. Here's a wrench for this. Here's a hammer for this. Here's a screwdriver for this. This is what we use.
That that way of teaching to me is so much more impactful when it comes to, all right, I'm going to I'm almost going to tease you in a way that allows you to get to the answer on your own. I think that's so lacking in the education space because people are always seeking the thing, the answer, the exercise. Um, I see it a lot because, being involved in the social media space, working with a lot of coaches, the tendency is like, this is the movement you need to build X, or this food is the key to Y. And it's like, no, not necessarily. Everything is context dependent.
Yeah.
And they end up with this really narrow toolbox. So they can only coach maybe one type of person.
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with a large variety of athletes in different sports and different anthropometrics, like you can't just have a hammer. But at the same time, if I just hand you a toolbox of tools and I don't teach you when to use those tools or how to implement them within certain contexts, the toolbox is essentially useless, right?
Yep. Yep. And that's why I tell you what, when Ed Cohn and I do seminars now, we like doing ours together because I'll give you an example. We start off the seminar, with our squats. So we'll bring people up and we'll talk about the stuff that we're looking for, what we value the most, on the technical side of everything. We'll talk about the main technical aspects of stuff. And then we'll go and get people lifting, Paul. And then we will stop a group. We'll bring everybody in. So that way coaches, athletes get to see. We'll watch one or two people lift. Ed will coach them directly, ask some questions. We'll put them back to work. Then I'll stop somebody, bring all the coaches, everybody who's in attendance. Hey, what are you seeing on this lift? How do we fix this? What are some ideas? That way you're lifting, getting people engaged, getting people involved so they can see it hands on. So they're like, oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, coach, I wasn't even paying attention to their feet. Oh, I wasn't even paying attention to their knees or their chest position. I thought they were in a good position. I didn't realize lowering the bar a little bit is more advantageous for that person. I didn't realize hiring the bar is actually going to be better for that person because of their structure. So I think it goes the whole part whole. You show the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
break it down into parts, get them going on everything, and then break those down into parts. And people, like you said, now they understand how to use a wrench here. Now they understand to use this over here. Now they understand to use this on this part when you see that part.
One of the questions that I get asked the most by younger coaches, especially the younger coaches who get it, like they understand the nuances of the coaching relationship with the client, is how do I learn the soft skills required to accurately help each individual person? How do you approach that?
Yeah, you got to have some type of lifting background, what we're doing. Okay. There's a big thing when you squatted your 800, like from your 85 to your 700, there's a big difference, like you said, that you figured out along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So you've had to have weight. I see too many coaches that haven't had that experience before. So, I mean, I get my coaches in there lifting, or people have said, well, I'm just going to come to your seminar. I just want to, I'm a coach. I just want to learn how to do this. I'm like, no, let me actually get you. I don't care if you're squatting 135, if you're an older coach, let me coach you on stuff so you can actually feel this and see what I'm actually talking about. Let's put a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of weight in your hands on that part. So I really think it's getting them involved. And for those that, don't do that stuff, it's like I bring them up and I just give them specific examples. I show them about this is how we're training this person. This is what we're doing with this person over here. So again, I guess it's like my athletes. I try to find the best way and be what I need for that person at that point in time.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people miss that interpersonal relationship.
Yeah.
Like, so how would I, as a young coach, go about developing the skills required to create lasting relationships? Because you're talking about working with clients for 12 plus years. That
Hmm.
doesn't happen unless you create a deep relationship.
Yeah.
How does a coach learn how to do that?
I think it was just over time. I think my athletes see that I'm so invested in them with what they're doing. They see, they let me, Jared's in here for 4 weeks, literally has his 3 laptops set up on my kitchen tables working from there. So I think when they see that, I think when they see that all these athletes travel in, I think when they just see that I'm invested, I go to meets, like I had warm ups planned up. I'm up the night before till 12 o'clock going over stuff, even if it's a local meet, like making sure, okay, this is what I think this person's capable of, making sure this is. So when we go in, I have their sheets ready. They know their warm ups and everything. We're prepared on all that stuff. I've got this. Hey, this is what you're going to need to break this record. Hey, this is what you need to qualify. So I think it's just being over prepared like anything else and going above and beyond. When you treat people right, you get them results and you go above and beyond. Like you said earlier, the best thing they're going to do is they're going to tell people, oh, you got to go with Hartman. He does this, this, and this. He takes care of this. When I have training camps here, you want to ask about that? Like, every couple of months we have the HPT, training weekends where all my good athletes from all over come in and you put all those people together, they see how invested I am. We got breakfast for everybody over here with stuff. We're all meeting together afterwards. I got stuff planned out. I got the gym taken care of with everybody. Their workouts are in order. So for a young coach, I really think is you got to invest in yourself. You got to invest in the people, and you have to go above and beyond. I see a good article, I text them that. I see a good video on stuff, Paul. Like when you asked about my online training, it's not
Mm-hmm.
just me. Paul posts up his 800-pound squat. Okay, keep your chest up, sit back a little more. No, here's a good video on this. Here's an example where I need you to be. Here's where you're at. So again, it's like, man, I get video feedback from Hartman. I get like clear, concise, not just a couple comments on stuff. So I think when people see that all around, that's what you're going to have to do as a young coach, and people will buy in because you got them results, you went above and beyond, and you especially took care of them.
What are some of the strategies that you use to manage your time appropriately? Because that is another major factor that I get asked a lot by young coaches, managing time.
Paul, this is where you gave me some specific advice last time. I appreciated your coaching style. That's why I enjoyed talking to you. I guess some of the things I took away from you that have worked for me since our last discussions and even off the air discussions that you took your time with me with, which is another reason why I'm bought into your system of coaching, is compartmentalizing stuff. I put this time to focus on this. Okay, now it's time to focus on this. Now it's time to focus on this. So instead of being scatterbrained and answering your phone and looking at this in between, hey, this is my time for emails. Hey, this is my time for video feedback that I'm doing on these days. Hey, this is my time that I need to get my schedule in order to set up the week. Hey, this is my time that my athletes are coming in. Phones are away, no excuses on that part. Everything is blocked off on that end. Hey, here's where I need to maybe revisit some stuff. When I'm driving and everything, hey, whenever I'm going big distance, I do a lot of check-ins during that time, so I'm not wasting that time. So I guess with talking with you, I've learned, just like you manage a lifter and just like I manage Jared, I've learned to manage my specifics better, compartmentalize certain things at certain times. I think that's really helped out with a lot of my time management. And I'll have some more discussions because you've given me
Oh, I'm
some great
sure.
insight to your part. That's why I love your coaching style.
No, I appreciate the kind words because I'm a big believer that whether you want to be like very esoteric with it, like one of the things that's been very conscious in my mind over the last year is your feet are where they are. I've repeated that to myself so many times over the last year, whether it was going through my rehab or training for this bodybuilding show. You have the tendency to always have your eyes looking forward or your mind looking forward to the next thing. And when you have like in business, when you have a lot of things on your plate and there is always a next thing, you get lost in the sauce and forget that your feet are where they are. And if you are always looking forward and you're always scatterbrained and you sit down at your desk and you have this massive to-do list and nothing is prioritized, it is impossible to be present and put your best work forward because you're not actually focused on the work that you're doing. You're focused on the work that you need to be doing. And when I reframed everything in that manner, it became very clear to me that a lot of my problems are simple. A lot of them can be solved by just being where I am and focusing on one thing at a time. The product that I'm able to produce is of much higher quality, so people are going to get results. And the pushback is always, and I'm sure that you kind of felt this initially, is like, well, if I'm so regimented, what happens if a monkey wrench gets thrown in the plans? It's like,
Yeah.
well, if you're so regimented and a monkey wrench gets thrown into plans, you can better handle the monkey wrench
Yeah.
because you're so regimented. It's like the solution to the problem is the solution that was already in place in the first place. Um, it's it's so simple that I almost like feel bad charging people for it. But the problem is implementation. Like you're someone who's very highly motivated. You intrinsically you are motivated to actually just put in the work and do what's necessary. Whereas I think a lot of people they second guess themselves. Do you ever find yourself in that position where you're second guessing the decisions that you're making, or you're not necessarily sure if they're as accurate as they should be? Or are you just somebody who's like, no, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to get it done, and then I'm going to evaluate the results as I go?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I'll give you an example. There was a local seminar I did, and it wasn't a lot of pay and everything. And I'm like, man, this is a lot to go out there, travel, do all this stuff. And when I talked to you before, and I talked to my good friend Zach and Evan Esh, he said, like, he goes, listen, he goes, a lot of people in your area still don't know. He goes, I've been around here for 15 years, and people in my area still don't know me. He goes, you need to take advantage of that by all means. So I thought about that. Paul, I brought in, like I told you, we ran in 11, 12 people deep at that seminar.
Mm-hmm.
We rocked it. We had all our coaches coaching. We worked through lunch hour with everything. We stayed after with all of our stuff. Then I sent emails to everybody that was on that list, thanking
Good.
them. Then I sent specific emails to those that I really connected with. And guess what that opened up for me? Starting in October, I'll be teaching a police and fire strength conditioning class
Mm-hmm.
because one of the guys there that I connected with, I didn't even know he was an assistant director of a city out here called Plainfield, Indiana. And all of a sudden, he's like, "Hey," he goes, "thanks so much." And he goes, "You were professional. Your team was awesome." He goes, "You stayed and helped me." He goes, I didn't even know who he was, Paul. I just thought he was an attendant. I knew his first name was, Jared out there, another Jared. And then
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Well, that was just phenomenal." And he goes, "What about doing this? Could you, put this into the tactical side?" Now all of a sudden, I got a class coming up. I got two more people online, and I got another person in person because I took advantage, like you told me, and like Zach Avnesh said, take full advantage of your situation. So I brought my whole team out there. We rocked it. Again, when you asked me about young coaches, it was lunch hour. Guess what? We were training through lunch. I made an announcement. Hey, everybody who wants to keep training with us, train with us through lunch. Come over, get your technique evaluated. You got Jared, 1,000-pound squatter. You got me. You got the rest of my team that's going to help you out. We stayed after to talk to people. We talked to people in between. We talked to all the presenters. Thank you email to everybody that was there. I asked the owner for everyone's email, and then specific emails to those people I really connected with. And all of a sudden, I got all these connections. I got more job opportunities and everything available now.
That speaks to something that I think goes completely unchecked in most cases, especially when it comes to like in-person events or even online events, whether you're hosting a webinar or a master class, whatever you want to call it, is how prepared are you to take advantage of the eyes that are on you? A great example that I use, I mentioned the master class or the webinar, is periodically I'll go live on Instagram. And it'll just be like off the cuff. I've got 20 minutes. I'm just going to go live and see who joins. And you might look at that and say, oh, you only got 8 people to join your live. It's like, yeah, but when was the last time you were in front of 8 people? And they're like, never. I'm like, exactly. So I had 8 people's attention on me, engaged, asking questions, and it gave me an opportunity to provide value. Now I have the names of those 8 people. Because it was on Instagram, I can access their profiles. I can go engage with them afterwards. And I have this plan in my head prior to doing it, right? It's like, I'm going to do this live. Then I'm going to follow up with everyone who attends. I'm going to start conversations. And the only goal of that is to add value. Now you've opened conversations with 8 people that could potentially purchase your services, or you just leave them with a great taste in their mouth and a positive viewpoint of who you are as a coach and what you offer. You did that seminar knowing full well, I'm going to gather emails. I'm going to send thank yous to everybody. I'm going to make sure that I send personal emails to the ones that I resonated with the most. My only goal here is to add value. Lo and behold, you probably made a few $1,000s off of this, probably more,
Yeah.
right? Because if
Oh,
you
yeah.
factor in, this is something that I also factor in. Say your average retention rate for a client, let's say for you, let's lowball it. It's a year and you charge $300. Well, if you get one client, that's $3,000, $3,600. Well, $3,600 for sending an email and doing a seminar that you were going to do anyway and you got paid for, even if you didn't get paid for that seminar, that's a lot of money just by being prepared at creating engagement and providing value. It's not rocket surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Agreed.
love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Opened up a lot of
Um,
doors with stuff, man. Yeah, it's been good.
how have you found, like, this is more of a selfish question because in Canada, whenever we tried to do in-person seminars in Canada, it like was falling on deaf ears. Nobody wanted to spend the money to be there, whether it was like the most engaging thing ever. We just could never get registrations. Whereas here in the US, we promoted a seminar in Florida last year for like 4 days and got 42 attendees. How are you finding the in-person education space when it comes to hosting seminars? Are you finding people are still motivated to attend, even though they can quote unquote get the information for free on Instagram?
Yeah, it's not as much as it used to be, and even the Swiss Symposium where there used to be over 800 people in attendance out there, now they're down to 400 and some. I
Mm-hmm.
think that has definitely hit it. But like you said, I'll give you an example. Like when you come to mine, I bring a lot of my athletes in, so it's not just one or two guys speaking. It's a whole
Mm,
team that's going to be there of, national champ this, world record holder this, American record holder this, multiple this, college All American this part. So I guess when I try to advertise mine, I'm like, hey, this is not just a thing where one guy's speaking or it's a lecture the whole time. Like this is partly like this. Hey, if you're a coach, here's what you're going to learn. We're going to teach you guys how to coach over here too. Like I told you, we're going to stop the group, show things. Hey, if you're an athlete, guess what? You get to train right in front of us. We're literally
yeah.
going to coach you on everything that we do. Hey, we're bringing certain people in. I'll have certain people talk about this lift, or hey, they do this particular on their sumo deadlift, on this conventional lift. Hey, we're talking about assistance work. So I think it's having a multitude that I've gotten the best feedback. Like, man, you had like, even if we had 36 people, 30 people, man, you had like, six or seven coaches out there. You had eight or nine of your athletes out there. They're all helping and seeing that stuff. So I think that's been a big part on mine. That's been a good selling point is giving them more value. Like, hey, we're here to help you guys,
Hmm.
here to go on that stuff. So I think that, and I think obviously having Ed Cohn's name out there when I go travel with him with stuff, that's an easy selling point, Paul. He's well known. Obviously, he's a pretty good
Yeah.
lift to this day.
He's not bad. He's okay.
Yeah, he's okay. Yeah, I think with that stuff, when I did Dave Tate stuff, when I helped him with his train your ass off seminars, I was down there doing that. That was a big part. And I got to be in front of people. We kept those small, but again, like you said, even those 8 people that I engaged with, those 8 people, like they still hit me up with questions. They still, hey, can I book a Zoom meeting with you? I want to look at my deadlift,
Hmm.
heavy deadlift training session. It's like you just said, hey, that adds value. Hey, that's 3,600 off that just one person over here. Hey, that's a couple Zoom meetings where we're charging this, but again, I'm helping people. You're getting paid for your time, and people got to see like, man, Jeremy's very technical. He's funny when he needs to be funny. He's serious when he needs to be serious. I kind of like that combination of everything. He pointed some great stuff out to me. I got results. I felt better on my lifts. Maybe that nagging back injury when you would deadlift or squat isn't there anymore because we fixed that little technical side. Or I gave
Hmm.
you some assistance work that you needed to bring up to help that point. So I think those have been big parts with just the seminars and stuff that I've done that I've done real well.
I love it. Um, what are you most excited about right now? Like, what are you looking forward to the most?
Man, it's been a blessed year with everything because we've had another person I get to talk much about, Shelby Morse, who just won the U.S. Nationals. I said for the Open division. Shelby has been a girl. She was a tennis player and a volleyball player as her high school strength coach. She walked in and didn't know how much a barbell weighed, and I yelled at her the first day because she was late. She was a freshman in high school. She got lost, but she's been with me all the way through. And Paul, she won a teenage high school national title. She won a college national title. For our listeners, juniors is like anybody who's, if you're not enrolled in college or you graduated, you can do the junior division.
Hmm.
And then, Paul, for the last, 3 years, we've placed at the Open Nationals. We just haven't won it. And we put together our best training cycle. I gave her a little bit more independency than I ever had before. Like, hey, you got to make some decisions on this. You've been with, here's the parameters I want you in. You're squatting 400 to 415 on this day. You need to pick out what's going to be. So I think having her go all the way and finally win the Open division out there, that was a huge one because again, someone who'd been with me for 12 plus years. I think Jared's stuff where hey, you need to make this choice. You need to come down here and be with me. This needs to be a training camp for you. I need to focus on everything. We took all the distractions out. My wrestlers, we had 3 guys going Division 1. I got 2 more guys next year that are doing that.
Hell
And
yeah.
most recently, Paul, it's been kind of neat is the track and field aspect. I've gotten besides jumpers and stuff I had in the past. I connected with the Indiana University throws coach again. Went above and beyond, helped her out. She started bringing me in to work with her throwers. So now I'm working with these Division 1. She had 4 people qualified for the NCAA championships, and the whole
Wow.
track team, 2 of them came from her throws team.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so it's good because guess what? Those throwers, they throw and they go lift. They love it. They love
They're
progress.
such meatheads, man.
They are. I love it, man.
I
And
remember when I was at Robert Morris University, I would drive up to Penn State and work with Cam Davidson,
Hmm.
who, shout out to Cam Davidson, just landed the head wrestling strength coach job at NC State. So he's coming to North Carolina, which is very
Nice.
exciting. But when I would go work with him on the weekends, that's when Ryan Whiting was training. That's when Reese Hoffa was training. That's when all these like high level throwers were training. You'd see these guys walk in, their first set on a snatch was 225.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these guys are just meatheads that just throw stuff.
Yeah. They're fast. They're explosive. They love to train. They want progress.
Yeah.
They love it all with everything.
Yeah, I would absolutely love that.
Yeah, so it's
Um,
been great. And the other thing with those guys, Paul, like the throws coaches, they're phenomenal strength coaches. Like when I talk to Megan over
mm,
here, she knows, we can talk about Bondarchuk stuff. We can talk
mhm.
about Paula Quinn stuff. We can talk about Olympic weightlifting. We can talk about using non-Olympic lifts to achieve certain things. We can talk about Judd Logan, four-time Olympian in the hammer throw. Reese Hoffa. It's funny you mentioned that because Megan actually, she was talking about she learned certain things from him for her shot put. She was third in the nation as an athlete. But
Wow,
Reese was a big part that showed her several different things. So it's just great that I can talk training with these other people and they know exactly what we're talking about and they can relate to those specific people.
I love that. We've talked a lot about being open and learning and continuing to level up yourself. What is your next focus of your coaching development? What are you going to be focusing on in the next year or so?
Yeah, I think it's just building continually building my business up. Besides, elite level athletes, we've got a lot of middle athletes that I'm really bringing up to the next level, which I actually still have a great passion for. It's yeah, I get to highlight the ones on social media and everything, but I really have a passion for bringing those kids up who are just at that point where they're good, but they could be great. They maybe could qualify for state, but I want them to be a state placer out here. They could be placed at nationals, but I want them to win. So I think it's really continuing on that. And another thing is just, I'll give examples, just including my coaching. I went out and Dr. Eric Serrano, who speaks at Swiss every
Hmm.
single year. He's been bugging me to stop by his place in Columbus, Ohio. So I finally stopped by his place. Him and I spent the whole day. I was over there I was only going to be there for an hour or two. I spent about almost 5, 6 hours with him. We were discussing training. We went over training. He actually put me through workouts. He noticed some areas that I needed to improve on. Gave me some different ways of looking at stuff with training and everything. So it was like a whole different style of train. So again, when I think I've got a good system, a pretty good system, I'm like, man, there's some holes in here that I need to look at from his end. And he learned a bunch from me on the technical side too.
Of course.
And he's very good with nutrition and everything too. So it was a little bit of selfish thing because, I got to improve on some of my stuff, get some new challenges. So I think it's just been great connecting with these other guys that I've wanted to connect with and just learning from that part, man. So it's just been great. But I really like bringing the other kids up through. Yeah, you get to highlight the other ones, but I really like that. And I just continue learning, man. Like I came back and my kid's like, oh God, who did he work with? I was like, yeah, it's with Dr. Serrano. My kids don't know who that is.
Right.
We're doing this now. We're changing this up. They're like, oh my God, I put them through stuff and I went through it. And it was just like a whole new, they're like, oh man, Hartman's on a roll again here.
Yeah, you come back from working with Eric Serrano, every kid gets a bucket of glycine in their Christmas stocking.
Yeah.
I remember I spent some time with him at Sorinex Summer Strong,
Yeah.
and dude, the amount of knowledge that guy passed along to me within like 2 hours was bananas.
Yeah.
And I think having that openness to ask for help from people who have areas of expertise outside of your own to continue to bolster your knowledge base, because ultimately, and I'm a big proponent of this, your business growth is going to be directly proportional to your personal development. If you stop growing, so will your business. And I think people get so focused on marketing and metrics and all this sort of stuff. It's like at the end of the day, we're working with people. So let's invest into our people. And the only way to invest fully into your people is to continue to invest fully into yourself. And it's something that you continue to exemplify, and it's really awesome to see. So anytime I get a chance to talk to you, I always leave these conversations incredibly inspired.
Yeah. Paul, another thing, I'll give an example. You talk about reaching out and using your connections. Like Jared and I were struggling with his bench press a little bit. We were getting, in a bench shirt, like you can get more PRs than raw. And we're
Mhm.
getting about, 5 kilo PRs, maybe a 7.5. It just wasn't where I needed. I reached out to Blaine Sumner. For our listeners, Blaine Sumner is the first guy, single ply, drug free, to bench over 1,000 pounds. He did at the Arnold. He squat over 1,100 as well, too. And Blaine was a friend of mine. I actually worked with him on his deadlift a little bit because that was one of his struggling ones. And I called him up. I hadn't talked to him in years. And I said, hey, here's our situation. Jared's going to World Games. Blaine used to be Blaine was the man. He was the heavyweight of
Oh yeah.
heavyweights. And he goes, here's what I'm struggling with. Here's what I'm seeing. What are you seeing? And Blaine and I got on that, and we started working with Blaine on some of the stuff that Jared needed to do. And he was a different philosophy for the mine. He was doing a lot more touches in the bench shirt than what I would normally give, and I thought would beat him up. But we were actually, it's funny, Paul, we were actually able to increase Jared's, again, his physical, like you talked about the ceiling and the floor. We're
Mm-hmm.
actually able to raise that floor. He's able to do more touches, get more shirt with more bench shirt work with it, not falter out or like, guys that use a bench shirt a lot, obviously the chest and lats, it's kind of missing off their raw lifts a little bit because you're using the shirt so much. Sometimes your raw bench goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Blaine had a different way of doing stuff, some different assistance work, and not just board presses for lockout to work your triceps. Blaine had more touches in the shirt with Jared. He had multiple touches. There was one time we did 650 pounds for 5 sets of one, which I never would have given a guy like that in a shirt. I'm like, that's going to wreck the shirt. That's going to wreck the guy. That makes
Yeah.
no sense. But we build up Jared's. His philosophy was this: keep raising your opener. Keep raising your opener, not just open up at this and then take your jumps, get a PR. His thing, and so it was different from mine, but we worked with Blaine every single week. We gave him videos, feedback, and stuff. Blaine gave us that. It changed my philosophy now in the bench shirt. And most importantly, I saw the results and how much better Jared was. Because you just squat 1,000 pounds for 1,003, 1,025, and you come back and still set an easy, I think it was almost a 12.5 kilo PR after all that in a different country. And
Right.
Jared looked good with the shirt. It wasn't he needed just this or needed that. Like I was looking for tools. Blaine's was different. We kept working on raising that opener, building up that work capacity, and actually ended up being one of the most amazing things in the bench shirt. So again, I reached out to my contacts. Now I have a whole new era of stuff that I'm going to bring into mine. And like you said, my business, my training, my athletes are going to get even better now.
I'm surprised his advice wasn't chicken shakes.
Okay. We kept the nutrition out. I was in charge of that. Okay. I
Yeah.
said, we're not doing the squat with you. We're not doing deadlift. I said, I just need the bench shirt work only with everything. And we focused and stuck to that. So
For
chicken
the
shakes,
list,
spinach, and
yeah.
water, Paul. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, for the listeners, Blaine Sumner was famous for blending up chicken and rice and drinking it. It was just awful.
Because he had an hour commute to the mine that he worked at. He's a coal mine engineer, petroleum based
Mhm.
engineer, something like that. And he goes, well, I can't be chewing food and I can't be doing this. So if I got to get it in. And again, Blaine, very intelligent guy, master's degree, coal mine engineering, University of Colorado. I forget the actual miners out there, but yeah, it's just funny with him with all the stuff that he did, but he made it work and he put the weight on and put the progress up, man.
I love it. Jeremy, I really appreciate your time again today. It was great to catch up, hear about your successes. And I think there's a ton of value. I have like a page and a half of notes here of value for the audience. So again, thank you so much. Keep doing great things for your people. And we'll definitely have to do this again.
Yeah, and Paul, I just want to say thank you as well. Like even off camera, the
Mhm.
stuff you've given me for my business, just little things and just like tips, like I'd give anybody on a squat. The stuff you've helped me out with, the stuff you told me to take advantage of, just the small little things around have just helped me out this last year. So I even look forward to talking with you more about that to scale
Yeah.
my personal stuff better and keep growing because this is your area of real expertise. And congrats to your bodybuilding show as well, man. Look phenomenal. Best physique you've ever had. The comebacks you've had from having both your quads torn off. Just an amazing that you're talking the talk and walking the walk at the same time.
That means a lot, man. Thank you so much. Again, I'll have links to where everyone can find you in the show notes. Everyone, thank you for listening. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right.